morning. Bangladesh Institute of International and Strategic Studies, may I take this opportunity to welcome you all in today's seminar on gig economy and Bangladesh, opportunities, challenges, and way forward. Today, we are very much honored to have among us Dr. Moshiur Rahman, Economic Affairs Advisor to the Honorable Prime Minister, Government of the People's Republic of Bangladesh as the chief guest. Learned audience, today's seminar will be chaired by Dr. Jaidi Sattar, Chairman, Policy Research Institute of Bangladesh, PRI. In today's seminar, we have got three learned speakers who are going to deliver their insightful presentations in their respective subjects. Followed by the presentations, the floor will be open for open discussion. Distinguished guests, today's program will be started with the welcome address by Major General Sheikh Pasha Habibuddin, OSP, SGP, BAMS, AFWC, PSC, Director General, BISS. After the open discussion, today's chief guest, Dr. Moshiur Rahman, Economic Affairs Advisor to the Honorable Prime Minister, will convey his valuable speech. Finally, the chair of the session will make the concluding remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, may I now request the chair of the session, Dr. Jaidi Sattar, to kindly commence the program. Sir, you have the floor now. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I think the first item here is a welcome address from the Director General. So without much ado, I would invite the Director General to kindly make his welcome address. Thank you.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Honorable Chief Guest, His Excellency Dr. Moshiur Rahman, Honorable Economic Affairs Advisor to the Honorable Prime Minister, Government of the People's Republic of Bangladesh, respected Chair, Dr. Jaidi Sattar, Chairman, Policy Research Institute of Bangladesh, learned panelists, Excellencies, distinguished guests, media representatives, ladies and gentlemen. Assalamu alaikum and a very good morning to you all. On behalf of Bangladesh Institute of International and Strategic Studies, let me welcome you all to today's seminar on gig economy and Bangladesh, opportunities, challenges, and way forward. My heartfelt gratitude to the Honorable Chief Guest, His Excellency Dr. Moshiur Rahman, for gracing the occasion. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the month of three momentous occasions. Our Father of the Nation's 7th March speech, then birth of our Father of the Nation, and also our Independence Day. So at the outset, in this historic month of March, I'd like to pay my tribute to the memory of the Father of the Nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, and millions of martyrs who made their supreme sacrifice during every struggle for our national emancipation and the Liberation War 1971. Distinguished audience, due to the widespread adoption of technologies such as internet and smartphones, the nature of employment has been transformed significantly. The employee-employer dynamic that existed in the previous century has begun to change, clearing the way for new forms of employment that were impossible in the past century. This change has brought a new kind of concept called the gig economy, which has been on the rise since the financial crisis of 2008-2009 compelled many people to seek out temporary project-based employment. According to the World Economic Forum, in the gig economy, independent contractors are matched with clients through online marketplace in order to supply temporary services or share resources. The UK government defines gig economy as a platform that involves the exchange of labor for money between individuals and companies via digital platforms that actively facilitate matching between the providers and the customers on a short-term and payment by task basis. Hence, in a nutshell, the concept of gig economy refers to a labor market in which the freelancers and independent contractors, rather than permanent employees, cover the majority of available employment through online platform. Ladies and gentlemen, the evolution of gig economy is gaining popularity due to the nature of flexibility at work. In the traditional notion, the employment, the phrase 9 to 5 has been synonymous with employment. But in the gig economy, the concept of employment has become flexible by use of technology and the rise of remote work. In this new concept of employment, working hours and locations are flexible for all the employees. Because of this, everyone has the flexibility to work whenever and wherever they want to work. We have already seen the blessings of this new concept of employment during the outbreak of COVID-19 pandemic. During that time, numerous businesses were forced to reduce their workforce, and a considerable number of the employees were laid off. Several people, in order to survive the economic crisis, entered freelance works via internet, which is now referred to as the gig economy. Thus, one of the many amazing benefits of today's highly developed technologies is the rise of the gig economy. Due to the growing popularity of remote work, people are becoming more interested in concepts like the gig economy. According to OECD data, the gig economy already accounts for between 1 to 3% of all jobs, and this number is increasing rapidly. Experts are also anticipating that the gig economy accounts for half of the workforce by 2030. According to the Bangladesh Bureau of Statistics, 1.6 million people are benefiting from the additional income provided by the gig economy work. Dear audience, there is no doubt that the emergence of gig economy will be benefiting the countries like Bangladesh. As the economy of the country suffers under the weight of an expanding population and high unemployment rates, the gig economy will play a crucial part in keeping the economy moving. According to Oxford International Institute, Bangladesh is the second favorite country to supply online labor. In 2021, Bangladesh had a 27% increment in its gig workforce. By 2030, Bangladesh is projected to be the 24th largest economy in the world, with substantial contribution to the gig economy. Bangladesh has experienced an online freelance boom over the 500,000 active freelancers. In Bangladesh, digitalization such as internet access and smartphone availability has played a key role in its growth and expansion of the gig economy. Many complicated and time-consuming jobs have been eased and accelerated due to the rapid technological improvements, making the gig work easier. In Bangladesh, ride-sharing and food delivery applications have become a part of the daily urban lives. According to a study conducted by the Policy Research Institute, Bangladesh's ride-sharing industry is worth Taka 2,200 crore and represents 23% of the transport sector. Within the next 5 to 7 years, the estimated market value of ride-sharing startups is likely to reach $1 billion. In the recent years, the number of gig workers in e-commerce companies have risen significantly. As reported by the Oxford Internet Institute, Bangladesh is representing 16% share of the global online workforce, following only India, which has 24% share of the global online workers. According to ICT division of Bangladesh, There are around 650,000 freelancers and over 1,600 team-based freelancing organizations in Bangladesh. As stated by the Pioneers Global Economy Index, Bangladesh is ranked 8th among the countries with the highest year-on-year revenue growth in the freelance sector. Ladies and gentlemen, with the appropriate mix of policies, digital infrastructure, and supporting service, the gig economy has the potential to become a growth engine for the country by producing jobs for many people. However, there are some challenges along the way as well. Firstly, Bangladesh does not have its own gig market. Thus, Bangladeshi freelancers need to work through other countries' digital platforms. Due to this reason, Bangladeshi freelancers need to spend more time for getting work orders. Secondly, the payment methods of the foreign websites seem difficult for Bangladeshi freelancers, particularly for those who are living in the rural areas. I hope the exchange of ideas in today's seminar will assist in identifying practical solutions to the challenges that Bangladeshi gig workers are facing, as well as shed light on how Bangladesh may derive the greatest advantage from the gig economy. At the end, let me once again express my gratitude and warm appreciations to the Honorable Chief Guest, respected Chair, panelists, and the learned audience for encouraging us with your participation. I expect this event will generate some effective discussion on this matter. Thank you all. Joy Bangla.
Thank you, Major General Sheikh Pasha, Director General of the Bangladesh Institute of International and Strategic Studies. You've given us more than a welcome address. You've really brought us in line with what is going on in this gig economy. And you've given us an introduction to the gig economy, a fairly detailed introduction. Thank you so much. So first of all, I have to express my appreciation, and I'm doubly grateful actually, because first of all, for inviting me to chair this, technical session, and secondly, for thinking that I'm, the right person to be chairing this session on a technological sort of discussion on which my knowledge is sparse, if I may say so. But we've got very, very resourceful presenters who are experts in this field. And as I listen to them and their presentations, probably I will be more informed, so that when I talk in the closing, make the closing remarks, maybe I'll be more informative for the audience here. So, but although I feel a bit, hesitant, I'm comforted by the fact that I have my mentor, Dr. Mashur Rahman, with me. He will make up for whatever shortcomings I have on this particular, technical subject. But the fact, we are all, although I can, say that I'm an old timer, civil servant turned economist. And I still am not great at, all the technological advances that have taken place. These young people, they are the ones in the forefront. Artificial intelligence and robotics and all these things, they are making, the economy very different from what we had thought of, the economy in which we entered the job market. And this gig economy is actually two things. On one side, it's a technological advance that has given us this type of activities. On the other hand, it is also a labor market phenomenon. And when you look up, Google, when you Google trying to understand what this gig economy is, you will see that they talk about the labor market, about the short-term employment, contractual employment. And that is what our Director General just mentioned about, freelancers. This is going to be the rising, they'll make the rising share of the job market in the future. And as you mentioned, by 2030, roughly 50% of our employees would be in this category of, contractual employment. When we entered the labor market, when we joined the civil service, for instance, we thought, this is one place where I'm going to, work all my life and end my life here. But that is not how the world works these days. You move from job to job, you move from contract to contract. Short-term contracts are what I think the IT freelancers and IT investors, they actually experience that. So without getting too much into the conversation, I think we have a very high level, I would think, experts in this field. And we'll start with Dr. Mahfouz Kabir, who's the research director of BIISS. And he will first make a talk about market characteristics, growth, and contributions of the gig economy. That's going to be the central theme today. And this will be followed by a presentation by Mr. Wahid Sharif on services outsourcing challenges and opportunities. Mr. Sharif is president of Bangladesh Association of Contact Center and Outsourcing. I'm glad to know that there is an organization of this type. And then we have Mr. Mike Kazi, founder and CEO, Apex DMIT Limited. He'll be talking about export of IT-enabled services, skills, and the way forward. So we have three very, very interesting presentations coming up. Okay, now it's your turn, Dr. Mahfouz Kabir, for the presentation.
Thank you, respected chair of the session, honorable chief guest, Dr. Moshiur Rahman, the Economic Affairs Advisor to the Honorable Prime Minister, Government of Bangladesh, the respected Director General of BIISS, and a learned panelist, esteemed guests, ladies and gentlemen. So I'll be briefly talking about the market characteristics and growth of the gig economy and the contribution of the gig economy. So I'll be partly talking about the global perspective and then come to the Bangladesh perspective. So what is the gig economy? It's already mentioned by our Director General and briefly mentioned by the chair of the session. So it's all about the temporary jobs and it's the labor market, which is characterized by the short-term contracts in the freelance work, which is considered as a gig economy. And there are a lot of, in fact, companies, organizations, not located only in Bangladesh. It's a global, in fact, spread of the organizations, the firms. So they want to hire the temporary workers. And there are basically two major segments. Basically, the first of all is the knowledge-based gigs, so which includes the machine learning data. So now if we consider that this, in fact, evolution of the whole gig, so then we find the scientists, independent management consultants, lot experts, technical experts on the software development. So these are one part. And the service-based gigs, which is the fresh people and delivery drivers. So now we see the Shohoj and also the Chandal.com, if we consider, or the Shiba. So they are the people, and also the Pathao. So they are working on in this component. So it's now they're becoming as a sizable portion of the whole economy, not only the local but also the global economy, and they enjoy the flexible working hours and also they earn a higher salary or the wages than the, in fact, regular, in fact, traditional workers. So, and also we see the transport workers and nowadays, and we have the, in fact, Uber and others, the cab service, and they are earning money by working in extra hours, and they take these companies like the Facebook and Google, so they are also hiring the temporary workers. And I already mentioned the Pathao Shohoj. So Shohoj actually made our life easier in terms of taking the tickets and especially in the transport services. So and they also hire the people temporarily. So And given the size of the unemployment in Bangladesh and in other parts of the world, so the people are also responding to the appeal or the demand of these companies. So especially the young generation and the in fact young youth, who are educated, so they want at least some experience before going to the other job. So they want to come to the sector. So now if you see the global work of outsourcing, so these are basically the countries you can see on the screen. So India is basically the biggest supplier, and then Bangladesh and Pakistan and Philippines also, and Ukraine, Russia. So they are basically the suppliers. And if you see the demand side, so USA, Canada, Great Britain, so they are basically the demand side of the whole gig economy. So now if we see some of the important statistics, so 163 million registered user accounts, so that we found from the Oxford Internet Institute, and of whom 8%, 9% of them were active. So and they're earning, in fact. So even though they're contextual and the short-term employment is in there, but they're earning so significantly. So and there is a substantial growth if we consider from 2015. So and data is also available up to 2023. So we can see that the phenomenal growth of the whole gig economy. And what are the services basically? So the professional services. So even though it's a tiny share, but still it's emerging. And then sales and marketing support, and clerical and data entry, writing and translation, creative and multimedia, software development technology. So if we see the shares, then definitely software development technology, which is growing very fast. So it has the largest share, which is followed by the creative and multimedia, and then writing and translation. And now if we see the different, in fact, websites and in fact startups, like the Google Translation, and then the different, if we consider the chatbots, and so these are also emerging. But still, if you see the composition of the demand side, then in fact, writing and translation is also an important part. Okay, so if we see the size of the economy, so it's 119 billion global, and of which the tax is 62%, 62 billion. So and then delivery at 37 billion, hybrid 17, and online base is 3 billion. So this is basically the global composition. And the United States 49%, so already half of the whole gig economy, and it's the demand side of the gig economy. And then 11% is Europe, and then China 23%. China is also a supplier, but it also has demand. So and if we see the important, in fact, firms, so the Facebook, PayPal, so Apple TV, and then FreeBuy, Skype. So these are basically the companies, and then Microtask, so medical consultation, taxi delivery, Walt. So these are basically the huge number of global important companies are in there. So now in the broad category, we see that the growth, so it's phenomenal, as I already mentioned, over the last 10 years or so. So and the delivery is the highest if we consider the number of the digital level platform, which is followed by the online web-based, in fact, different platforms, and then taxi, and it's a very tiny share of hybrid different services. So if we see that the composition of the demand and supply, then we can see that the United States is the biggest in terms of demand side, and then India. And if we see the other countries, which are in the United Kingdom, Australia, Canada, so these are basically the demand side, but their share is not that significant. In the supply side, Bangladesh and then Pakistan. United States is also a supply side of country. So but the thing is that in terms of payment, so the developed countries, they are working less hours, but they earn more. So that is a special characteristic of the in fact gig economy. And if we see the growth over time, so since the 2017 to 2021, so you can see a kind of fluctuation in the supply side, but the demand is growing steadily in these periods. But if we see the in fact the period from January 20 to January 21. So this is the period in which there is a significant growth because of the COVID-19. So what are the basically challenges? So it's increased competition. So that is, so there are a lot of, in fact, international companies, and they compete within themselves. So it's not only regarding the services, but also, I mean, their in fact, quality improvement and the high commission. So that is also important thing, and lack of transparency in rating. So this is also an important thing, as which I'll be speaking in the latter part of my presentation, and lack of adequate digital infrastructure. So that is also a challenging part of the things. And what about earning? So it's basically the 65 hours is in fact the average working hour per week. So that is, and it also increases sometimes in some part of the world. So some of the workers also work up to 80 hours per week. So it depends on the countries. And the educational level. So that's also an important part. And I think some of the panelists will also speak on the educational level and skills. So if we see the in fact level of services and type of services and educational category, then you can see that in the online work. So this type of work requires higher education, like I mean the bachelor's degree and above. So, but in terms of the taxi driving and delivery sector, so they don't need that kind of education that we can see from the graph. And about the earnings, so I already mentioned. So it depends on the type of company. So and in the freelance, so they pay 7.6 US dollars per hour, but in micro tasks, so they pay 3.3. So it's an average kind of the payment. And in by development status, I already mentioned. So there is a significant difference between developed country and developing country in terms of payment. So the in fact workers located in developing countries, they pay significantly less than the workers located in the developed countries. So and there is also an gender difference. So the males get lower in fact payment than the females. So it's not my statistics provided by the Oxford Internet Institute. So in our works that I already mentioned, so the workers located in the developed countries, they work less, but they get more. So now about Bangladesh. So as already mentioned by our Director General, so the informal economy is a significant contribution. It is the 43% of the Bangladesh GDP, and gig economy is contributing and it's becoming an important part of the informal economy. So and why is informal economy? I'll be speaking on it later. So ride sharing industry. So we can see the phenomenal growth of this industry, and it has among the largest segment of the gig economy, which is 259 million, according to the latest statistics. So and the remote platform economy. So it's 100 million. So US dollars is generous, and it's projected that in the next 5 to 7 years, so its market value would be around 1 billion US dollars. So if we consider it, if we in fact, if we consider its share to the entire Bangladesh economy, so the size of the economy is 460 billion in the current market price. So it's not that significant if we consider it for the next 5 to 7 years. But if we see the growth is phenomenal, and it's not the kind of growth that we experience in terms of GDP growth per year. So that is a side. And if we see that the model of different, in fact, arms of the gig economy. So on one side, as I already mentioned, the ride sharing, and then the grocery. So and also the in fact clothing, shoes. So and also different type of in fact software based work. So these are basically the major parts of our gig economy. And as already mentioned by our Director General, so internet access and smartphone availability. So this made the life easier for the especially the young workers, young educated workers. So they can join the gig economy from any part of the country. It's not only from in the towns, but also in the remote part of the villages. If they have the internet access and if they have the smartphone or laptop or any kind of computer or tab, so they can join the gig economy and provide the services to any part of the world. And also the growth of the e-commerce, it also facilitated the gig economy. So in the e-commerce, so there is a product side, so and the marketing. And in the marketing or the delivery, so they come and website development and in any kind of technical work, the economy, so the workers provide the support. So if we see the latest statistics of the Oxford Internet Institute of 2023, so the share of Bangladesh in terms of all occupations, the share is 16% in total gig economy in the world. And the first is India, which has 22% share in terms of all occupations. But there is a variation in terms of different other clusters. So now it's the map that and the graph that I made using the Oxford Internet Institute's data. So what is the total share? So from 2017 to 2023, so the Bangladesh had around 15% of the global share, and in India had 27%. And the other countries were Pakistan, United States, United Kingdom, Philippines. So these are basically the important countries. But if we see the global share of the online labor for all occupation of 2022, so then India has the 22.3% share and Bangladesh has the 15.8, around 16% share, and which is followed by Pakistan, 12.2%. And then if we see the, in fact, services by category, the software development and technological, which has the, in fact, the highest dividend, so and the highest share in the whole, the global, in fact, gig economy, then Bangladesh has the 5th position with a 4.8% share, and India has about 29% share. And about the clerical and data entry, so Bangladesh has the 2nd largest share, 19.4%, and India has 21%. So it's very close if you consider the 1st and 2nd country. And the creative and multimedia, Bangladesh has the highest share, so 28.3%. And the sales and marketing support, Bangladesh has the 2nd place, around 12%, and India has the highest share of 44.6%. And for professional services, Bangladesh again has the 5th share, about 4%, and United States 31.2%. And writing and translation, still there is a demand. So, and Bangladesh has the 2nd largest share, 14.8%, and Pakistan has the highest share, 22.8%. Now, if we see the change, so the top occupation in 2017, so Bangladesh, if we see in fact, the map, then you can see the sales and marketing support was the most important occupation in the online marketplace. But in 2022, so it's creative and multimedia, which has the highest, in fact, of the important occupation in the online labor market. And now, already mentioned, the students, basically, they want to, in fact, get some of the experiences. So they want some part-time jobs in the superstores, the restaurant, and NGO projects, and these are basically the main, because of the attitude of the society. But they are also interested in participating in the freelancing in the e-commerce industry, so to get some experiences, and also they can work in the retail store, basically the online retail. So they can also work and also in the ride-sharing platforms and call centers. So they are also interested in working in these centers. So, and according to some statistics, those 37% of the service providers are in Pathao. So are the students. So they study in different educational institutions, but they are also working. So and you can see some of the news reports that some of the women, so they also work and also study, and some of the transgender, in fact, women, so they also work and study in private universities and public universities. And what are the, in fact, interest of the young generation? So it's software development, digital marketing, 3D animation, and visualization. So these are the web-based and graphic design. So they are interested in learning. So these are basically the outcome of some of the statistics. So, and already mentioned, so it's Bangladeshi workers are interested and also actively participating in the both local and international markets. So, and over the past decade, as already mentioned, Bangladesh has become, in some of the professional categories, they have emerged as the second largest, but in some of the important categories like IT, so they are not, in fact, performing as required, even though Bangladesh government has, in fact, established a lot of, in fact, high-tech parks and also facilitating in fact, digital Bangladesh. So, but still, I mean, the participation of the gig workforce in the high-tech work, so it's not that significant. So if we consider the different, in fact, IT services, like the IT-enabled services, so the export is around 500 billion US dollars right now, and the share is increasing, and there are around 1,600 team-based freelancing organizations are in there, and their annual revenue is around $500 million. And the government has started a project which is called Learning and Earning Development Project in 2014, so that the young generations can be educated and to become the self-sufficient as freelancers. And there are around 58,000, in fact, individuals so in what getting the free training under this project. So I'm at the last part of my presentation. So just if we consider some of the, in fact, predicaments in Bangladesh, so there is a lack of, in fact, social safety and security. So this is basically one of the major, in fact, fears of the, in fact, workers who want to enter the, in fact, online labor market. So there is a lack of health insurance, the employment injury insurance, and the unemployment insurance and disability insurance. And also there is a lack of pension. Some of the, in fact, global companies, they provide, but according to the survey, in fact, conducted by the Oxford International Institute, so they have said that a very insignificant portion of the, in fact, workers are covered by different insurance schemes by the different companies. So, and there is a need for, in fact, policy dialogue. So it's not only at the national level, but also at the global level to set the standard and the fair work. So, and basically the data protection is an important thing, as already, in fact, discussed at the different spheres in Bangladesh, and the government is in the process of, in fact, formulating a policy regarding data protection. So this also, there are two sides of this. So there is need for data protection, but there is also a need for, in fact, increased trade in the digital services. So that is also important, and there is an evidence that in fact, increased flow of data would facilitate trade. So that is also the thing, and that there is a need for, in fact, policy dialogue and freedom of association. So that is also a concern, and there is a report from the Fair Work in Bangladesh that they don't have, in fact, gig workers don't have the association, that they don't have the common voice. So that is also an important thing. And the employment relationship, the relationship between the employer and the employee, that is not that transparent, and there is hardly any kind of formal contract. So that is also a missing thing. And occupational safety and health. So that is also an important area to consider, social security. And the government has introduced and in the process of introducing the universal pension scheme. So they, in fact, everyone can be, in fact, covered by that. But before that, in fact, there is a need for, in fact, introducing different modalities. And non-discrimination, this is also an important thing. So which is being discussed in the policy level on the gig economy. And dispute resolution mechanism. So that's also an important thing. So if there is a dispute regarding the business itself, and also in fact relationship between the workers and the employers, then what would be the settlement mechanism? Or are there any institutional support or mechanism regarding that? So that is also not very clear. So it's the report of the Fair Work Bangladesh score of 2022. So there are some companies like Chaldal, HelloTask, Sheva, Uber. So, and if we see the scores, so which are provided by the, in fact, the users and also the, in fact, workers. So, and score is not that significant, but some of the companies are doing very a bit well. So that is the thing, and Chaldal and HelloTask, so and Sheva. So these are the top companies in the gig market. So and they are doing well, but the other companies are not that, in fact, doing that well. So I am at the end of my presentation, but there are basically 5 things: the fair pay. So that is very important thing. Fair conditions. So the working condition is also important. Fair contracts. So contract is sometimes missing, and sometimes the contract is not that transparent, and then fair management. So that is also an important thing. So the management of the whole, from government to the private sector in the gig economy, and also within the and between the companies, and fair representation. So as I already mentioned, ensuring the freedom of association. So that is very important thing, and expression of the collective voice of the workers. So if there is a healthy atmosphere to work, and if the payment is good, and if there is a social insurance, and if the workplace is good, then and congenial, then there will be lot of responses, positive responses from the, in fact, potential workers. And I hope the gig economy will be a visible part of the economy in the coming days. So with this, I would like to thank everyone for patient hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mahfouz Kabir, for an excellent presentation and with a lot of background research. And I think I'm really informed about this new animal called the gig economy. Thank you very much. What you have shown is that there is this new, the scope of work. This is like what we call the future of work. The future of work is going to be very different from what we now see around us. And that is what this kind of this gig economy is leading us to. Automation. Automation is driving this kind of work. Remote work is the kind of work that we might find in the future as well. So you've really laid the groundwork for what we will start understanding about the future of work in Bangladesh. And you've given us the scope, the extent, the depth and the breadth of this particular gig economy, the share of the contribution of this economy to GDP. Of course, later on when I wrap up this session, I might talk a bit more about the extent, the share of this economy in the overall national economy, GDP, as you will. Okay, so we now move on to our next presenter, and I would like to invite Mr. Wahid Sharif, President, Bangladesh Association of Contact Center and Outsourcing. And he will be talking on services outsourcing, challenges and opportunities.
Thank you, sir. Honorable Chief Guest, today's chair, my fellow panelists, distinguished guest, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Assalamu alaikum. First of all, I wanted to thank BIISS that they have taken this initiative, that we from the IT or ITS industry haven't seen this kind of initiative from a research wing and showed interest in this sector. So definitely being from the industry, I wanted to thank BIISS that showed interest, because this is one of the challenges that after I finish my presentation that we face this industry, that no one has taken the initiative to put more or do more R&D in this sector, that what is the opportunities and challenges, and bring those up with the policymakers and solve it so that we can achieve what we wanted to, what the opportunities that lie in front of us in local market and the global market. So just to give you a background, I will spend 4 or 5 minutes just to give a background of the industry. where this industry actually started, why we are talking about this, our Honorable Prime Minister's vision, Digital Bangladesh Vision 2021, when she gave us in 2008. That's exactly where everybody came under the one umbrella that we have to get this industry up and running and going, because the opportunities that this industry lies. Then from that point, our Honorable ICT Advisor personally has taken, especially the BPO industry, the service sector. We had the software, we had the hardware sector before, but the service sector was not actually it was not institutionalized. And so he has that vision that this sector actually will take Bangladesh to the next level, like where India is today or Philippines is today. It will create more jobs and earn more foreign currency eventually, where we can replace or come close to the RMG sectors at a certain point. So he has that vision. And then from the industry, we started the BPO sector. Why? Because we enjoy the demographic dividend. We have almost 65% of our youth, and we will be enjoying it for next 8, 9, 10 years, even more. And we want to take full advantage of it. We want to take full advantage of our young crowd, young population, and bring them, skill them, so that they can come join the local industry and grow the local industry as well as the international market. So I have to talk, I'm representing BACCO, so we just wanted to talk a little bit about what BACCO does. We are the trade body. We have about almost close to 300 members right now, providing services in local market and international market. We do any trade body does. We help our members. We help with policymakers, stakeholders, try to bring the right, talk about challenges, opportunities, what needs to be done with the right stakeholders to grow the industry. So that's what BACCO is. This is a little journey of BACCO, how we started in 2009. Then we did our first roadmap 2013. We host our first BPO summit 2015. There were no central conference or anything. So we started doing that, bringing international players, local policymakers, academicians. So we try to bring everybody under one roof and talk about the industry, talk about the challenges. And we've been doing it since then till the Corona. We were not able to do it during the Corona, but we'll be again doing it starting from this year, July. Talk about it. So this is where we have grown. So 2019, if you have seen that we were only 50,000 employees, but if I go back to 2008-9, when we first started, we were only 300 employees in this industry. 8 or 9 companies are working, maybe $26 million revenue earning. From there, we have achieved 2019, almost 400 million revenue, 50,000 employees. 2022, the industry has grown to 700 million with 70,000 employees. And we set a target to achieve $1 billion revenue by 2025 and 100,000 employment by 2025, and 2030, 5 billion and 400,000 employment generation. And it's very much doable. And I'll talk about how in later part during the opportunities and challenges part of it. But this is what we have achieved. And this is the target that I think we will be able to achieve it. What government has done for us? Many things. Infrastructure, my previous speaker has talked about that. Many high-tech parks are coming up, software technology park, incubation centers coming up. You can see, we have our first satellite is up there. Many of these numbers are familiar with everybody that, we talked about many times, that we have grown so much in the technology side, in infrastructure side, that enabled us to provide these services, which we were not been able to do it. We are now connected all the way up to union level. We have many high-tech parks, not only in Dhaka, outside of Dhaka. There's Joshua IT Park is fully operational. There are 53 companies are working there. Almost 2,000 employees are working from out of that IT park. Rajshahi Sylhet is up and operational. Kaliakoir is operational. So these are all the things that infrastructure-wise that government has doing. Incentives. These are some of the incentives that the industry is experiencing. The policy support that we are getting from the government, which is actually helped the industry to grow and continues to grow. I'm not going to go line by line. I'm sure you can all see it, and many of these are available in online. These are the very few selected incentives that the IT/ITES companies are receiving. We are tax exempt till 2024. We are in talk with the government to extend this till 2031. It's very important that we do extend till 2031 to continue this growth, because during the COVID period time, the industry has slowed down. And then we started to see upward momentum, but then the war started again, and then now the industry, in a little shaky mode. So this exemption needs to continue till 2031. So I would, as I have our chief guest, honorable advisor to Prime Minister, I would humbly request that this exemption has to extend till 2031. We do get 10% cash incentive on export. So everything that we export, we get cash incentive of 10%, which actually help the export market. More companies are focusing on international work so that they can bring foreign currency. So it helps the country with its reserve. We get 5% VAT in local services. We are VAT exempt on our office rent as IT/ITES companies. And the recent incentive that government has given us that actually helped what we're talking about, the gig workforce, the freelancers, they get 4% cash incentive on all their export earnings. And that actually is helping them to grow their business. These are some of the policy that support that we have. We have national ICT policy, national broadband policy. We have a BPO policy. We have Data Protection Act, Digital Security Act, and there are a couple of more right now is ongoing, which actually will help us to the industry, especially on the international market. Because if you are talking about the international client, international company, they want to see if their data is being protected, if their work that they're going to be outsourcing to Bangladesh will be protected by the laws and regulations. So these are some of the things that actually help the industry to get more foreign work. These are some of the skill development and training projects that the government has taken initiative with the industry. Learning Earning has been talked about. It's a very successful project that helped the freelancer. We have created a good freelancing community. We have almost 650,000 freelancers right now in Bangladesh. They're working, and it's growing more and more. The She Power project now, the second phase is here. It's called Heart Power project. It's focused on fully dedicated to female, bringing them, training them in the IT/ITES skills, so that they can come to the workforce. And when I said the job that almost 70,000, that the job market, that the job that has been created in this industry, 40% is female employment, especially in the service sector, because that the flexibility that they have, they can work from home, they can work from anywhere, part-time jobs. So that has created an opportunity for the females to come into this workforce and contribute. And it's especially the project like this and incentives like this, it will continue to grow. Some of these initiatives that we have taken, creating awareness in the local market, because local market is a huge market. The government is one of our biggest clients. The government, we are continuously in talk with government that what are the work that they can outsource, they can get it done from the private sector. As long as the private industry, there are a lot of industry. We have one of the largest R&D sectors in the world. Pharmaceutical sector is big. Light engineering sector is big. So if they started using our local services, then the local market is pretty big. So we are in continuous talks. These are some of these opportunities that we have that I think we should utilize to create more gig workforce, gig economy, IT/ITES services. So if we have a good strength in our local market, then we can go in the international market because we have a reference point, we have experience, expertise. So the local market has to be sustainable. Local market has to give the local industry that trust factor that yes, your local bank is outsourcing your work to the local company, the government is outsourcing it to the local company. That brings or creates the trust for the foreign companies that they can then come and give work. If the local companies, the local industry doesn't trust us to do their job, then the international companies will not give us work. So this is very, very important. Then the access to global market, definitely country branding. We will continue to do that. Access to finance. There are a few of the things that we are getting now, especially during the COVID period. We were able to help our members to get some of this access to finance, but there's more things that needs to be done on the access to finance part. These are the industries that we serve. It pretty much covers vast level of industry, and as I said, that these are all the industry that's locally present. We have not penetrated that fully to that level yet, but the opportunities are huge. If some of these industries started using our services to do their jobs, then this industry, the numbers that I have shown, the $1 billion target, $5 billion target, and the employment target, that can be done very, very easily. These are some of the brands our member companies are serving from Bangladesh. You can see many of them, their brands are international brands. So we are serving them currently from Bangladesh, as well as some of these local brands. So we have a very, very good presence in the market right now. And these are the countries that we are serving currently. So one of the largest market we have is USA, Europe, and Japan. They are one of the largest customer countries. So while I'm showing this, I'll jump into the opportunity part of it before I come to the challenges. So what are the opportunities? We say that right now globally it's almost a $500 to $600 billion market, just the service outsourcing sector. It could be freelancing, it could be company B2B, B2C. Overall, it's almost $500 to $600 billion opportunities. Where are the majority of the opportunities coming from? Definitely North America, Europe, Japan, and Africa is coming up also. So how do we? So we've been talking about that. How can we? We have a target to reach $5 billion by 2025, and we're talking about almost $20 billion by 2030-31. India is doing 180 billion right now. Philippines is doing 25 billion. Sri Lanka itself is doing $5 to $6 billion in this sector. So why can't we do it? We are enjoying the demographic dividend. We have the right resources. So why can we not do it? 20 billion is very much achievable. How? Because USA, Japan, Europe, there's shortage of skilled resources right now, especially in the IT/ITES sectors. So if we can have the right policy, if we have to do the right things on time, so next 7 to 8 years, they will be requiring almost 2 million workforce that they need them to support their country's work. So if we can provide those services, either from Bangladesh or provide the skilled resources to them, then that gives us that huge opportunity to bring that foreign currency. And 20 billion out of 500, 600 billion, 20 billion is nothing. I mean, that's very much achievable if we can do the right things on the right time. That goes the international market. Local market, as I said, that's huge. We have not have a proper data yet. Actually, what is our demand in the local market? The local market is growing. The local industry is growing. Government is also growing. Their service, citizen services are getting more digitized. Some of the services can be outsourced. Already they're outsourcing it, but many of them can be outsourced through private sector. So that gives us the push in the local market also. So if we can do those things, then we can create the opportunities. What are the challenges? So the major challenge right now we face is we see that we have many people coming out. The graduates are coming out of universities, schools, colleges, but they're not skilled. From the industry side, we've been talking about that there's a huge gap between academia and industry. What they're teaching in their school and colleges or universities, by the time they're coming out in the industry, getting job, they're not ready. They're not getting the job. We are suffering. We interview 100 people. We only are able to hire 3 people out of 100. So that ratio that gap needs to close. That gap needs to close to, if I want to interview 100, I want to hire 100 people. So that brings the cost down to the companies. So why we are not being able to hire? Definitely, they are getting out of engineering degrees, MBA, BBA, a lot of things, but the basics are missing. In our industry, we service the contact center, BPO, so we hire a lot of freshers. Everybody coming out of graduates, fresh graduates coming out of every year, every semester. And what we notice that they cannot write in proper English, they cannot properly write in Bangla, they cannot speak proper Bangla. They cannot properly speak English. We don't need much English because to serve the local market, we need Bangla. But still, people are not properly speaking Bangla. They have a mother tongue accent problem. They're talking about, they're talking the way they talk with their friends in professional. So those are the things that needs to be fixed because those are basic soft skill, communication skill that they need to learn from the school. And not when they come to university. We're talking about that these things has to be fixed from the primary school level, secondary school level. The teachers, who they're teaching them, they need to be upskilled. They need to be able to learn what is the industry is required from the primary school. They need to teach them the discipline. They need to teach them how to do analytical problem-solving skills, analytical skills, listening skills. So those are the things I think they need to start teaching from now. That's where the policymaker needs to come in place, that what are the things they need to do from the primary school level, secondary school level, and then come up to the university side. And also the teachers, they're very, very important. The teachers, what are the skill set that they have? Are they up to speed or not? So if we can't fix the core, then we're going to lose the opportunity that I just talked about. So that is number one. Number two is access to finance. We are still facing a lot of issues with access to finance because our industry actually not a very heavy asset-based industry. Our financial system still, they ask for mortgage, right? But our asset is our knowledge. It's in our head. We can't mortgage that. So the valuation system needs to be up to speed. The financial system has to be aligned with the industry, that they need to be able to gauge us or judge the IT/ITES industry, not like asset-wise, what kind of land you have or mortgage that can be mortgageable, rather than the knowledge, the IP, the intellectual property that we're working on, that the valuation, that is very important. Then we can scale. And third is, as I mentioned before, R&D. Not enough R&D has been done in this industry. We don't know what are our local demands are, what kind of services that can be outsourced, what kind of services RMG sector can outsource, pharmaceutical can outsource, light engineering sectors can outsource, automotive sector can outsource. We don't have the data. Even we don't have the data that what are the services that the government can also outsource. That very specific survey with proper R&D data, that those are the things can be done. Then from the industry, we can focus on creating skills to cater to those industry, providing services creating services to provide the industry. Right now, we have to create our own demand. We have to create our own services. We are doing it everything. So everything's getting slowed down. So it has to be methodical ways. The R&D has to be done proper outcome based and has to be a proper follow through. And the lastly is in industry branding. We don't have proper industry branding. I'm sure many of you sitting here today probably don't even know what kind of services do we provide. So let alone our local industry, other industries, governments. So industry promotion has to be done properly, locally and internationally, because country branding is very important. The international country, the international market, the international company first has to know Bangladesh is IT destination. Right now, they only know India, Philippines, or maybe Sri Lanka. But Bangladesh has to be there in that list. Then we can achieve the target that we talked about. So if we can provide all these things, and if we can do it together, industry, academician, policymakers together, driving this, I think that we can definitely achieve the goal that we have set. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Wahid. Again, another very interesting and excellent presentation, bringing us up to date on what kind of activities are going on here. And thank you. Now we know that there is a proactive association of contact centers. Outsourcing is a word that we've been, hearing for a long time. Now we know that Bangladesh is very active in that sector. The only, there is some international implication of outsourcing here, because this particular element of cross-border work has grown in a geopolitical order, which we have called hyper-globalization. The last 30 plus years, you've had that. Now, there's some crack in that system now, and there's this talk of friendshoring, reshoring. So this cross-border, work integration that has been going on, which has been beneficial for Bangladesh. In fact, Bangladesh youths, and that I think BIISS is rightly placed to do that kind of research as to what are the implications of this new evolving geopolitical order. What is going to happen to this kind of outsourcing, the work integration across borders? So that is a very, interesting subject, a challenging development for Bangladesh, but good to know. So later on, maybe I'll add some. You've made some excellent points about, the tax system, tax exemption, and so as long as you have you're exporting, there will be no tax on that. Tax exemption is not limited there. But if you are providing, this back office services to domestic industries, there will be at least, there's tax on income that is always there, but even the services, you might have to pay tax like that, etc. So that's what the other thing is about the use. I mean, this back office servicing is being done mostly by our youth, right? So this is a youth dividend sort of thing, and Bangladesh is a young country. Some 30% of our population is under 25, 65%. Wow. So there is a demographic dividend to be earned, and this is, the gig economy, as we know now, is a driver of that dividend that we should be deriving. Thank you very much again. So now we have another very exciting presentation coming up from Mr. Mike Kazi, who is one of the largest exporter of IT-enabled services. So we export three categories. One is exporting goods. The other is exporting factor services, which is what we call remittance. Remittance is actually export of Bangladesh's factor services. But the other export which is much smaller, is export of non-factor services. And IT-enabled services is part of the export of non-factor services, which include things like financial services, shipping, insurance, all those things. But IT-enabled services is part of that non-factor service. So welcome. I invite you to make your presentation. One of the largest exporters of IT-enabled services, Mr. Mike Towns.
Thank you for having me here. I would like to thank the honorable chief guest, our esteemed panelists, and distinguished guests. And also, I would like to thank BIISS for taking this great initiative. Thank you, Sharif Bhai, Wahid Sharif, for covering a lot of what I'm going to talk about. But what I'm going to talk about a little bit more with my experience as a entrepreneur living in the US for last 35 plus years, and also doing the ITITS business. Recently, we're focusing on the dollar crisis and how much the LCs and stuff like that has been blocked. So how important it is to have US dollars come to Bangladesh, right? So that's kind of what my company does. Is we bring a lot of US dollars to Bangladesh from the work we do. So something that I want to focus on is Bangladesh as a destination for ITITS, right? We have great numbers, as in like, okay, $5 billion by 2025, 20 billion by 2041. India is doing 200 billion. Philippines doing 60 billion. Global market is so big. But then why is Bangladesh still at over like $1 billion? If we talk about India next door, they didn't just do 200 billion just by purely outsourcing or labor arbitrage. I think there's a misconcept there. I can share my experience. What we've been doing last 14 years in Bangladesh is, yes, in the beginning, we did do ITITS and outsourcing and back office service. But last about 9-10 years, we actually started acquiring companies. So we control the whole value chain, because what happens as you know, if you're in the industry of ITITS, BPO, is you're at your customer's mercy if they're going to keep you, if they're going to let you go, or if they're going to get a better service, better price point somewhere else, they're going to move their business somewhere else. But if you own the actual company that in the US and you're offshoring the labor and smart labor to Bangladesh, you actually get to keep the whole profit, not just like, oh, you get $15 an hour or $1,000 a month for a skilled worker, for like a virtual employee. Now you're making the whole profit for that business. So far as India goes and Philippines, what they've done and what at my company, what we're doing for last about 10 years plus is actually we own the company in the US where we're outsourcing the whole thing, as in like sales, marketing, accounting, human resource. The whole thing is done in Bangladesh. But as in front-facing customers, going and repairing houses and building houses and construction, that's being done in the US. But all the accounting, all the payroll, all that stuff done over here. So our margins are, 10, 20, 30, even 100 times. And now if we could bring that dollar to Bangladesh, right now I think it's like 110 taka per dollar or 105 taka per dollar. So yes, domestic market is great, and we need to continue to build that, but we really need to focus on actually purchasing some companies in the US. I think that's what I believe. And we could create like not just thousands of jobs, hundreds of thousands of jobs. Like I think one company in India, Tata, they have 400,000 employees in one company. And I don't know what it is, like $16 billion, just one company, I believe, right? About 16 billion, just one company. And we're talking about $5 billion, and that's a moving target, by the way. The five billion, it was supposed to be in 2021. Now we're putting it to 2025, and pretty soon we're going to do 2030. Unless we change our mind shift, I mean, we cannot just go for low cost labor. I mean, those days are gone. I mean, you'll see on a couple more slides. So if you're talking about ITS as a whole, it's about $5 trillion, $5+ trillion around there. My number could be wrong, but it's a big number. It is a big number. And our neighboring countries, they're doing like 20 times, 30 times, 40 times, 100 times more than what we're doing. It's right next door. And Sharif Bhai covered a lot of the stuff. Is our youth population 45 million, I'm not sure, more or less. Our internet users are 50+ million. Our fresh CSE graduates are 20,000 per year. And of course, there's long online opportunities, but these are challenges also. I mean, skilled resources, but how skilled are they? I think Wahid Bhai covered some of it. Is language is a challenge, obviously, right? English is a second language for us. But this could start early from the policy side, government side, where we can make this great app, but we can't sell it because we can't communicate that well. Or we could create Facebook. We have some talented people in Bangladesh. We could create Google, but we can't sell it because our communication skills not that good. But it starts from, I think, early stage in primary and kindergarten and stuff like that, where we really need to focus on that. If we want to get to that 2041, 20 billion, or even 100 billion, I think Bangladesh has that opportunity. We could do it. I believe that. I've been doing it for 14 years, and I see we've been growing every year after year after year. And it is improving, but not fast enough. With this much young population, I mean, we could be another country. I mean, I don't want to mention names, but yeah, they had great youth and whatnot, but then where they are now. So this could be like an opportunity and a threat for us too, if we want to do something really fast. We need to take care of our youth and educate them fast enough to become a global citizen, global marketing. So global marketeer, we have what, 160, 170 billion people in the country. And that's an asset for us. And I'm a practical person or entrepreneur that's using this amazing talent here. We really need to get our youth and get all the schools and government. We all need to work together on that. I think online is a great platform for that, for the youth. We blame the teachers and students and whatnot, but instead of watching YouTube videos, Hindi movies, Hindi songs, or Facebooking, they could definitely go and learn some skills. So we can't really blame the government too much, but we still need to educate them. Government's done a fantastic job. When I started in 2008, internet was 71,000 taka or 78,000 taka per megabyte, per MB. Now it's like, I think 500 or 800 taka per MB. So government's done a fantastic job as in giving the technology, but how are we using it? Are we promoting internet and doing good things with internet? I think policy and FDI, at least from my understanding and my experience, it could improve as far as like, yes, we make millions of dollars in the US. We want to bring it to Bangladesh, right? Because we want to hold it here. Bangladesh needs that cash. But what about if I need that money to take it back to the US for my purchasing more businesses or do more investments, so I could do more business back in Bangladesh? And that's not happening. I know we have some policies per se that says, yes, you could take it back. But if you go to the bank, that's not happening, by the way. And that's why people are scared to bring Bangladesh money and they want to take it back. We have the policy, but I need somebody to actually walk me through it because I'm still yet to take back $100,000 back to US because I want to pay the payroll or salary or whatever it may be. So I think there's a big challenge there, you know? And of course, the shortage of skilled manpower and branding Bangladesh, I covered pretty good. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So if I bring $1 million to Bangladesh, because Bangladesh, there's a lot of opportunities here. Yeah. So you want to bring all of your cash to Bangladesh. Now, if you want to take money back to US, because it's the company's money, right? So you bring money to Bangladesh, but then you can't take it back. But I talked to a lot of ministers. So from the businesses. So when no. So all the money we made in the US is in the US banks right now, but that could be easily be in Bangladesh banks. I mean, it takes me like, I think, click of a button to bring in like millions of dollars. I could do it right now on my cell phone, But if I'm trying to take that money back because I want to take that money back to US to the investments or whatever, make the company even bigger, that's not happening right now. And in 2023, that's kind of ridiculous. I think we're only one of the few countries that doesn't do that. So the flow of the money is not going both ways. I think the Bangladesh could accelerate a lot faster. But every time I talk about this, whether it's on TV or this kind of panels, the ministers and the government officials, yes, Mike, I'll do it for you. I will help you. I'll get it done for you. And then stops there, by the way, for your information, So way forward is Bangladesh, this ITS, it could be at least within a short time, 10% of its GDP. Very, very easy, very fast. If we could just, tweak or accelerate like few things like the education, the policy, and focus on technology. I don't personally believe ITS, what we're talking about, what I did 10 years ago, is what's going to get us there. Because then you're just a labor arbitrage. But if you could buy businesses in the US and then bring like what Tata did, they'll buy a company that have 100,000 employees and bring 50,000 back to US within like 9 months. So all this high-tech park we have, I think we have like 40 high-tech parks. Yes, some of them have 2,000 employees and 2,000 people working there, but most of them are going to be empty and left empty because we don't have enough jobs over here. Unless we bring those jobs from US or Canada or other countries. And way to do that is to buy companies in the US or other countries or start them and then move bulk of that labor to Bangladesh. And then now we could earn in dollars instead of takas, right? 1 taka before it used to be 85, now it's 105, 110. So it's a very fast way to grow our country. So I don't have that big of a long speech. And so thank you so much. And I hope I didn't offend anybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mike Kelsey. You make some very interesting points, but I think some need some clarification as well. When you point out that you have difficulty, you brought in, investable resources, put it in Bangladesh, but when it's time to take, returns back to the States, you're having difficulty. Let me just add that actually that kind of transaction requires the capital account to be convertible. Bangladesh does not have in its balance of payments, the capital account is not convertible. And Bangladesh is not alone. Most countries, except for developed countries and OECD members, the rest of the world operates on a limited capital account convertible. Even China doesn't have a convertible capital account. But repatriation of profits of foreign investment is allowed. It's part of the Bangladesh foreign investment regime, repatriation of profits and income of foreign investment. So I don't know why a company like yours is having difficulty in repatriating profits.
So we're not doing the business in Bangladesh, taking that money. we're earning the money in the US, bringing it to Bangladesh.
Yes.
And
Okay.
then we want to take it back because we need the money back in our businesses. That's not possible. What are you talking about? British tobacco or gramophone, I make millions of dollars, take the money from Bangladeshi. Yes, you're letting them take that.
Yes.
But me, as bringing the money from US, where it has nothing to do with Bangladesh. Yes, we use Bangladesh Steel Force and stuff like that.
Okay.
So instead of bringing 100 million, I'll bring just a million just for my labor costs. Why should I bring the rest of it here?
Yeah, but interestingly, anyway, maybe this will need some clarification later on. I feel that money you bring in here is a foreign investment. It's a foreign investment. So repatriation of returns from that investment should be allowed, according to the foreign investment regime in Bangladesh. But what is on paper is one thing, and what is in practice is something else. So I understand that. So anyway, I think we've had excellent, three excellent presentations, lots of information. I'm more educated now than I was before this session. So, but more importantly, I think the audience here, I can see very, exciting faces, lots of interest in what is being presented and discussed. So I think I'll open up the floor for another 25, 30 minutes for questions and to the panelists and presenters. So we have, please introduce yourself and ask a very simple and short question.
I'm retired, and you may also say tired, because I was retired in 1991, effective 92. So since then, I'm involved in business. My name is Major General Fazlur Rahman. The IT industry where it is today, I feel very sad, because it started with the undersea cable, which was given free. India got it, Bangladesh got it, Sri Lanka got it. And but when the first BNP government came to power after Paul Shah, they cancelled that contract. Money, it was given free of cost. Now, BNP came the second time. By then, 12 years passed. They regenerated that contract, paying about 1,800 crores or something like that. Now, 1,800 crores for a country was nothing. But by then, we had lost 12 years. And IT started in this subcontinent, as well as in this region, with call centers, with data entry. And we are behind 12 years. And if that was not done, today, more than garments, we will be earning to IT. So this is what happens unless government may change, or political party may change. But unless we hold on to the policies which helps the government, which helps the country, nothing can. So
Right.
such a sad affair, it always pains me. And today, what I hear, where we could be in these 12 years. So if I have to hold a party responsible for one particular thing, it is because of this, nothing else. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I hope our chief guest might be able to respond, because he was in the policy making level at that time. Maybe he can respond. But if our panelists could respond to this question. Anyone would like to respond to this question? In that case, I move on to the audience. Yes, Mr. Siddiq.
সাইন করে দিছে
Okay.
আপনার ভিতরে গেলেন না
What I will do is I will take a few questions and
Huh?
then we will move on to some responses.
Recycle. You are talking about the capital account conversion, after the question raised by Mike Kazi about the repatriation, sending back, taking back money earned by himself. So it is as per the policy of the central bank under Foreign Exchange Regulation Act, anybody can bring any money into Bangladesh, but when they will take back the money or any overseas investment is restricted in our country. It was banned once, now it is restricted because central bank and BIDA has formulated a formula for overseas investment by local entrepreneurs. So that policy says only those who are exporters, they can invest part of their export earning to other country. But there are certain rules and regulations. And so far I know, not a single company from Bangladesh is allowed to invest in other countries. But you can see some of the company already invested, Pran or some other company invested in other country. That they somehow very difficultly they have earned some money, kept in other country, then they have invested. So that was slightly irregular. But regularly, with the formal permission from the government, none of the entrepreneur allowed to invest outside the country. So that is the real fact. Thank you.
Yeah, that's part of the non-convertible capital account story. You have to take special permission and all that. Anyway, our next.
Thanks very much, Honorable Chair. This is Salahuddin Ahmed. I was a member of Bangladesh Energy Regulatory Commission, and I was also a faculty banker and television news presenter once for 40 years last. Honorable DG was speaking about problems faced in payment system, especially by the rural people involved in this business. And another item came that data protection via the trade growth that probably Mr. Sharif mentioned. So I think this should be left to only to the experts, and this should never be seen through any political lens or anything, because that can damage the possibility of trade growth in this field. And another thing came, Dr. Kabir mentioned that insurance, pension, etc. In fact, as this business itself is a temporary of temporary nature, so no question of insurance or pension. So it doesn't sound to be that much relevant. But as the mother of humanity is taking care of this nation now, we can think of these two things also, though later. Finally, the very crucial agenda that Mr. Kazi mentioned, that repatriation of profit, and it should be, I think, should be taken very, very seriously, and hopefully we'll be soon hearing the government clear statement about these things. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Nijek, introduce.
I'm Professor Tawhida Faruqi. I was the Director General of the Ministry of Women and Children Affairs, the Director of Ministry of Education, and I was the Secretary General of the UNESCO. Thank you, Chair, thank you for giving me the chair. The thing is that this is no question. I want to what I realize here. The main problem is Bangladesh is the expanding the population and unemployment. So if you want to make this unemployed, about 30% graduate is unemployed because of there is skill problem, and it's not possible for the government to involve such a big number of people in the government job, involve or recruit in the job. So we need to be forced to this. We are forced to this GIG market. So we need this unemployed forces. We need to have a very expanded skill training, so that we can sell it. And this one speaker, he identified the challenges. That is the main challenges what I feel in my personal life, in my personal office, that the many graduates, they have got master degree also, but they cannot speak. If I can't speak and I can't speak, I cannot, and if I'm not analytical, whatever the quality I have, if I cannot sell it to me, to my quality, about my quality in the market, I cannot just influence people to the global market. So it will be very difficult to sell ourselves. And that speaker, he explained that the main problem is the primary problem. The primary, so we should take to the primary teachers also, because many teachers I have seen, they cannot speak proper Bengali, they can properly English, they can understand English, they can speak a single line in English. When I was the director of the Ministry of Education, I told the teachers, you tell yourself, you study to talk, how to talk. If you cannot talk, how then you sell yourself the image. So this is the problem. How can we sell it? And this other speaker mentioned that we can invest money, but we cannot reinvest it to other country. Globally, we cannot invest it. This is the government policy. This is very good. If we can reinvest our money to globally, their money you can in the industrialist money we can reinvest to other globally. But the problem is there is a problem to be misused. That is the thing. So the policymaker can think in that way. How can we solve this problem? And they can negotiate. They can talk to the person who are in the chair.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So we have 3 questions. Will our panelists like to respond to any of them? If you feel comfortable.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for some of the great questions. Yes, I do agree with the bandwidth and how we kind of got it for free 12 years ago. I mean, yes, I agree with that, and that could have catapulted us in the future, but we can't. And that's not the only setback. You know, I mean, there's some things that we can do now with all the technology and whatnot. With technology, we could accelerate that a lot faster than we could even 50 years ago or 20 years ago. So internet is here, technology is here, where we could make one app that could put Bangladesh in $1 billion category overnight. So that wasn't possible like 20, 30, 50 years ago. As far as the FDIs and foreign investments, putting in Bangladesh, taking it back. I mean, yes, that was on my slide, but that wasn't my primary objective of this session. My primary objective is how can we work together as a country, as a nation, and be like our neighbors. You know, how are they being $200 billion annually and we're barely at 1 billion? Why are we not like that? Is that because outsourcing, or are they buying companies? Have we done research? How did they do that? You know, from my understanding, at least what's been working for us, is starting companies in the US or purchasing companies in the US and bringing in the whole value chain to Bangladesh. And it's a lot faster than rather than getting like $1,000 a month for a typical call center or BPO. And in Bangladesh, for domestic market, from what I heard from Wi-Fi, it was really bad, where they take 2 centers and ground and phone. They're saying, okay, you want to give me 17,000 taka per month? You want to give me 12,000 taka per month? They're fighting with each other. They're making a profit and taking it back to wherever they are. So, I mean, that's a big challenge, right? Whether, on the other way, if we brought a US employee and get him from Bangladesh, US, it would cost about $80,000 per year, plus taxes and stuff, it'd be like $130,000 per year. Or we could get somebody fully loaded for $30,000 a year, which is like, 1 lakh plus salary for fresh graduates.
Absolutely.
So we really need to think about, can we do like a private and public partnership together? Let's go buy a $500 million company. Let's go buy a $100 million company and move half the labor to Bangladesh and fill all these high-tech parks. And all these people who are saying 30,000 graduates every year, we could fill them every year if we wanted to. We could fill them every year without any doubt. Just a little bit of education, but we need to own the whole value chain. Thank you.
Yeah, very interesting proposition coming from Mike, actually. Do I see a hand raised? Okay, please introduce yourself and make a question short. Okay.
Yes, thank you. I express my gratitude to all of you giving the opportunity. My name is Farid Ahmed, Professor, Department of Philosophy, Jahangirnagar University.
If I may interrupt for a second, I'm told that this is being live streamed on Zoom, okay? So you can also, those who are interested can raise questions through the Zoom platform, okay? Yeah, please.
So my question is about welfare issues. And actually, the last part of the presentation presented by Dr. Mahbus Kabir, he raised some questions about fairness and the compromised welfare of the employee of this country in this system. So how this can be mitigated and how the fabrics of justice can be stronger now we are facing now. And the other thing, the two other presenters also raised here about the adequate education level and all those things. So may I request our economic advisor to the Prime Minister to think about this to assist us. Means I am from a university and we lack few many things. So how they can provide us resources so that we can train up our students, that is lacking. So that is a policy issue. So I hope from the next budget, our advisor to the Prime Minister will do something for us. And so the moral issue, the compromising issue, it is also philosophical. So I hope, could you please explain a little bit more so that the audience can learn about this, what type of challenges are there? You just mentioned few things, but could you please make it clear further? Thank you.
Okay. Any more questions from the audience? Yes.
Thank you,
I would
Chair.
like to invite Professor Anwar Hussain after.
Okay.
After you.
I'm a retired General Jibon Kanai Das. I'm the former DG of BIISS. I think it was a very interesting subject, and the subject itself forced me to be here to get to know what, and the presenters have really given a good account of themselves. I am much enlightened on this. Now, I don't have a very searching question, but I just want to pick up one or two issues from Mr. Wahid Sharif when he presented the issue. I deal, or rather I work on in the field of health services. My organization provides home care services. And over the last 15 years, we have been able to, in his words, create a domestic brand out of it. Even JICA have came to us and they have studied and they have accepted what it is. Now we are poised to send our workers in Japan. There were about 40 organizations, they provided home care service. They put up billboards and they put up facilities, but none could send people to Japan. The problem is that our workers are skilled now. They are trained in the Japanese language of level 5. And those people were interviewed and they found that they can speak sufficient enough for rendering good services. We are now stuck with the finance. the mortgage issue. The Kormoshangstan Bank would not give any loan without the mortgage. Now, these young girls, I'm talking about the girls because we feel safe to send them on this particular issue. That if they were rich enough to provide that mortgage, they would not have come to this service at all. So they are skilled, they are trained, and they are prepared to go. How to negotiate this problem? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, thank you. Now, may I invite Professor Anwar Hussain to join in this discussion? I'm sure you have a lot of ideas to share.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In fact, I was trying to listen very carefully and educate myself on such a very tricky thing. So I have nothing to say excepting thanking all the panelists. But I'm worried about the country's economy heading towards too. Because we have been achieving good deal of growth. And we are certainly progressing ahead. But that this progress, this growth, do not really mean development. That's my own perception, because development is growth with equity. And equity is really missing in Bangladesh. For example, we have one of the 4 state principles as socialism. But do we have socialism in practice on the ground? Certainly not. Secondly, there has been a yawning gap between the rich and poor. So this inequality does really preclude development in my own perception. Secondly, what I see is that, well, I do accept the negative impacts of the Ukraine war and the corona. Nevertheless, there is something missing in management properly. Bangladesh's major problem is management. In every sector. But I do congratulate the Bangladesh government, because only yesterday I was hearing the TV news, while the American government has failed to checkmate the decline of the 2 banks, Bangladesh has done that. So I congratulate the Bangladesh government. Nevertheless, banking sector is not really as healthy as we would have liked. So there remains something to be done about the whole economy and the delivery service that we have had. Finally, I however congratulate all the presenters for doing excellent job. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. You're absolutely on point. No question about that. If there are, have we received any questions through the Zoom platform? You can, any virtual questions? Is anybody?
I have raised hand, sir. Mr. Chair, I have raised hand.
Okay, please.
Participate. Yeah, this is Sheikh Morsha Jahan, Professor, IB at Dhaka University.
Okay, please go ahead.
First of all, I congratulate BIISS for taking up this one, and I think they have done a very wonderful job. And this is the policy attention which the sector requires. I was listening to the deliberations from all the speakers here. The way I would like to see for the future, probably we need to focus on 3 S's. 3 S's, first one is skills. Mr. Wahid Sharif categorically has mentioned that one. And we have to work a lot on this field. Second one is about the strategy. I pick up from Mike Kazir's presentation, particularly is the way we need to think about this industry. It is not only 5 billion, why not 50 billion? By 2041, we want to be the developed nation. And if India can do 200 billion, why can't we target, for example, 30, 40, 50 billion by 2041? And because we have this 170 million people, 60% youth, huge demographic dividend potential is there. Now we need to have the policies and infrastructure in place to guide us through. And also the third one is about the structure. We have the infrastructure done very good, but if we look at the ecosystem, particularly as it relates to financial sector, then we see two specific issues are mentioned. Mike mentioned about FDI, and also Mr. Waheed mentioned about how they're facing problem in accessing finance. So I think if we take note of these three S's, skills, strategy, and structure, we can go forward. It's a huge potential. I think this is one of the quickest and finest and easiest way for us to develop, for us to reach this 2041 vision. And we should dare to think big. The way the government did this, Padma Bridge, for example, nobody thought we could, but this is again, we need to have this big vision of thinking and daring to think big. So I agree with Mike Kazi, the points that he has mentioned, and also the issues raised by Waheed Sharif. I think we can take note of this for our future policy formulation. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you very much. Absolutely on point. And those three S's are really very critical, very critical. Any more virtual questions? We're almost out of time right now. Okay, I can try. There is no more virtual questions, so I think we can move to our, major attraction, I would think, of our session today, which is I really take pleasure in inviting our chief guest for sharing some of his perspective, his visions. You're most welcome, whatever is comfortable for you. So I'm sure Dr. Moshiur Rahman has a lot of ideas to share with all of us. Thank you.
So let me convey my regards, my good wishes to all of you, and thank the organizers for inviting me to listen to these very erudite statements, and also to reveal my ignorance without giving them the privilege of marking me down. That happens if you're in a school. The gig economy, I was not much familiar with gig economy, I must confess. And as most people do these days, you start looking at Google search, etc., and you get some information. But it's like the skill or educational inadequacy that has come up in the course of discussion. If the field is not well tilled, whatever seeds you sow, they don't germinate. So this was like that biblical saying that your seeds will not germinate if it is thrown on land which is full of stone. That's where I ended up. I kind of say that it's like the Montessori method of education. They start from something and then they go on to something that is new. But it was entirely new, and my return to the elementary school didn't help me much. As some of you have already said, it has to start from the primary stage. And if you have not learned that at the primary stage and through the secondary stage and so on, you don't benefit from jumping onto the higher level of education.
But before I go on to revealing more of my ignorance, let me respond to some of the issues which I thought have been specifically raised. One is the exemption from tax. There's an exemption from the domestic duties on the services they use at like renting, VAT on rent, etc. And there's also a question on income tax. I guess if you can give me a write-up, not very elaborate, but focusing on the issues that you have, I will try to understand it and pursue it. I do not promise that you will be exempt from payment of tax which is otherwise due. But if there is some anomaly, I think that should be addressed. But let me also confess that I'm a little, I have a little prejudice about discretionary tax rates. If you have, let us say, four persons, 4 companies or 4 entities in business, and you calibrate tax from, say, 5% to 25%, and there is one corporate entity, which is the same business as the one which is subject to 5 and one is subject to 25. So if the entity to 5% tax, if that entity loses up to 20%, they still make a 5% profit, something around that. So one should look very carefully whether the incentives is subsidizing weakness of the company, or it is supporting the company which can use this benefit to acquire more and more strength. But having said that, I would repeat that if you educate me on that issue by giving me a little write-up, give me also your telephone number, I would be interested in understanding your problem and trying to find out if a solution is possible, if a solution can be done, can be provided. The other I marked was repatriation of the money that you bring in, and then you have problem of taking it out. Again, I have the same problem. I didn't quite understand. I requested for further elaboration, but again, I would request that if you would take the trouble of writing out your problem and how you think it can be resolved, I would have an interest in working with you on that. Give me also your telephone number so that we can remain in conversation with each other. But what intrigued me was, you have a business abroad, you make your money there, why do you bring it back and then try to take it out? Without any aspersion, without saying that someone has played a game. If you have benefited from bringing that money in terms of income tax exemption and incentive that is given to export, it is unlikely that you'd be allowed to take out that money. But our foreign exchange regulations do provide that an exporter can use a portion of his or her export income for investment abroad, but that is very small. If you are in a business and if you want to continue that business, it's very unlikely that you will have enough to divert. So you will have to go to the Bangladesh bank. But if it is from your retained receipts from export, it would be easier to get. Now, this reference to some countries which have done well, which are doing much better than we do. I think there is a problem. I would not say problem. I mean, there is a difficulty in understanding the situation unless we relate it to the numbers to which they are related. If an economy is, say, 15 times larger than ours, and if they have, let us say, the same level of education and skill development and so on, they would possibly have 15 times more export potential than we have. If we are in a more advantageous position than that country and we are more integrated, more export focused, then we can also exceed a country which has a larger economy and which has a larger pool of skilled personnel. Now, we have been hearing the comparison with some country who didn't do so well. And we had the privilege of lending them some money, some foreign currency. Now, if they did so well, and if they were so skillful, so well educated, so intelligent, how do you explain that got into this trouble? And we were in a privileged position to help them out. It may be very small, but even then, we had the privilege of saying that, okay, we have helped you. So you have to look at the whole scheme of how that country or how that particular economy works, and why their level of intelligence and education fail in some critical terms. We may not be as good as they are, but maybe our conservatism, and maybe our say reluctance to jump on the bandwagon might have helped us. But that's quite, it's not bad. Now, there were references to the constraints we have. One is the university education and inadequacy or gaps in university education, language skill, starting from the primary school, primary stage and so on, low R&D expenditure, industry academy relationship and so on. These are serious issues and these ought to be addressed. But again, the same question comes up. If you have a finite amount of resources, and if you're considering between putting in a little more money for the university graduates so that they acquire skill for employment, and the hundreds of thousands of young people in the provincial areas, mofussil areas, who need access to a reasonably good education, where do you put your money? I mean, I somehow have a sympathy for those who have not had the opportunity of moving to the higher levels of education. I have a more sympathy with them, for them. But having said that, I would also add that the universities should possibly allocate a little more resources from what they have to science and technology and research, serious research, not a research which ends up in a non-referred journal. So if they can publish a referred journal, that's good. The other was repatriation on export, I had said. Then I guess there was a suggestion that some of the technical issues should be left to the specialists, and the politicians should remain outside. It's a very proper thing. If a technology issue does not have any serious social implication, it may be equity, it may be accessibility, it may be anything, then it is left to the specialists. But if it has a social implication, then you cannot leave out people's judgment on what is being done. I would not say politicians, I would say people's judgment. And how do the people formulate the judgment, transmit the judgment, and have their view influence public policy? That is the political process. You and I and many others may have issues as to the quality of the political process. There, I guess the solution is not to leave out the political process, but leaving out the political process actually cuts off the people from the process of exercising their influence over the performance of the political process. So I think it is a little drastic to suggest that the politics should be left out. and I may have a personal interest also, having been in quasi specialist area, civil servant, and having been having joined with politics, I always plead the relevance of politics to important social issues. There is a question of access to finance. Karmasongsthan Bank is primarily focused on domestic employment generation. So if you are seeking financing for those who go out, maybe you'd have a problem. But Prabasi Kalyan Bank, they do lend to people who go outside. What those who send people to Japan may be missing is whenever you think of export, we immediately start thinking of ready-made garments. So whenever we think of people going out for work and people sending remittance, we think of the Middle East. So maybe you'll have to do a little bit of explaining that the money which comes from USA or Europe or Japan is as good as the money which comes from the Middle East and maybe the other areas. But I guess in the last 1 or 2 years, USA became the largest source of remittance, not Middle East or Saudi Arabia. Other was growth versus development. Actually, I had kind of instigated the chair to bring in Dr. Anwar Hussain. Well, he speaks very well and he makes his point very clearly. Growth and development, these are definitely serious issues. But many of the people who worried about these issues said that growth is not development, but there cannot be any development without growth. But along with growth, you have to do a few other things like, development, I guess, would include investment in education, investment in health, investment in skill development, and so on. But you can't have public investment unless there is a public resource. And the public resource comes primarily from taxation. What are the sources of taxation? Is a growth. You take a part of the growth of the higher income generated in the private sector or in the economic activity and spend it on public welfare. There was a question about fairness, etc. in gig economy. The first presenter did point out that is one of the criticism of gig economy, that it does not assure you of a continuous income, continuous employment. It does not assure you of a continued access to income. And there is no security of employment or income. These are the weaknesses which are admitted. I guess a solution to that was insurance, the universal income insurance, which has been introduced. Now, that is a complicated issue, and I would not go into that fully. The one question is, how is the insurance financed? Insurance can be financed by the beneficiary. Whoever is the beneficiary subscribes a premium, and at the when the insurance becomes mature, he or she starts getting benefit. But the insurance which contributes to public welfare is the one which is financed by the state, or the state imposes a contribution on the employer. So someone has to pay the insurance premium. Otherwise, it doesn't work. So the government or the public authority can take the initiative in introducing the scheme, but it has to be financed by those who are earning and who are generating the income. Having said that, let me get back to my ignorance. I did a very quick calculation. I did a very quick calculation. Our last labor force survey was in 2016-17. It is done every 5 years, but for pandemic, it has been deferred. But it will be done now or in the next 1 or 2 years. 19, the latest survey that had indicated that 58% of the population in the working age group, 58% of them are working. And our unemployment rate is a little over 4%, 4.1, 4.2. That leaves out about 46% who are, sorry, I made a mistake. That leaves out about 45, 46% of population, of the working age population who are not working in the formal sector, they are in the informal sector. Now, what are the characteristics of the informal sector? Informal sector, they do not have a regular employment. They do not have a job security. They do not have an income security. They are hired by someone to work and they work and they are paid for the work they do. And then when they are not working, they don't get anything. It does not differ very much from what we are describing as gig economy, except that gig economy is more respectable than the informal workers who are actually laborers and low-paid workers. The gig economy comprises people who are very highly educated, professionally skillful, and they prefer to work, to do the work which they like. So work brings them some satisfaction rather than toiling for making a living. They work also for pleasure, and each time they do something, their skill is enhanced. Now think of an architect. Think of a trained town planner. Think of a lawyer who practices in the Supreme Court. So each time they deal with an important case, their reputation goes up. And the next time they get a much better offer and they enjoy doing it. Many of us who had gone abroad for education were gig workers. I guess Jaggi Sattar also is a gig worker. I was a gig worker in the sense my professor engaged me to do something because he or she recognized that I need to make up my income. Otherwise, I may have to starve. So this gig economy, it seems to be from the presentation we heard today, and the little bit I could gather from my access to Google, is that there's a difference between two groups of people or two types of gig employment. One is independent. The highly professional, creative people choose their employment independently. As some of the speakers said that they are dependent on their customer. The real gig workers are not so much dependent on customers. They can choose what they want to do and what they do not want to do. I have heard of lawyers, not only heard, actually it is within my experience. I was in India and I requested one barrister to take up a case for NBR. His reply was very courteous and said, I will not do any brief for you because if I win a case for NBR, I lose 10 other cases of people who try to get justice in terms of tax exemption and so on. So he was interested in building up his reputation. But there are others who were interested in taking a brief for the government, but would not get an assignment by the government. So there's a difference between independent one and the other set of people, my Google master said, is contingent. They do not have a regular employment. they are not fit to have a regular employment, so they depend on whatever they get now and then. So our service sector has expanded, but we have not yet found out the proportion of the service providers who are in the gig economy and who are in the unemployable economy. Those who presented the case here today are in the respectable gig section of the gig economy. It definitely would contribute to our economy, and if the customers are abroad, it definitely would contribute also to our export. There's no doubt about it. But then the condition that the skill has to improve, that requires a huge, not only an investment in terms of money, but also restructuring the skill and education system, and also the investment in those in the system. Now, how is it likely to impact A, employment, and B, equity? In terms of employment, the employment problem of graduates are really serious. I mean, here is a group of people in whose education there has been a huge public expenditure. But having done that, we do not find work where they can make contribution to the society. So there's a mismatch between the education and the social demand. So we may have to look at the way we can create the demand for their services by kind of customizing their training and the skill to what is demanded. But the demand also needs on the sophistication of the industries that we develop. Nowadays, even agriculture uses technology, and some education, some skill is necessary for agriculture. Industry is at this moment not a very highly sophisticated level. It's still assembling parts or assembling parts in a more sophisticated way. Some of the industries have moved on to higher technology, but still dependent on foreign parts, foreign spares supply. So as the industrial sector improves, we would definitely need the services of the respectable gig economists. But in order for the industrial sector to develop in terms of technology, it is necessary that the skills are developed. Unless the skills are developed, that industry will not develop. So there's a kind of interface between skill level and development. And I guess the logical option ought to be skill development. If there is not sufficient development within the country, they would go abroad, they would work abroad. But in course of time, there would be also development within the country. And as of now, because of the situation in the market and what Dr. Sattar mentioned as the hyper-globalization, the framing of the hyper-globalization, I think the demand abroad also would be somewhat subdued. So there's a chance of doing that. Now, there is a question of creating enough demand. The gig economy presumes a kind of employment without a social organization. I mean, in terms of not having a social organization, in the sense that if you are working in a factory, if you are working in an office, and I guess Mr. Sharif pointed out to that, in terms of absence of an organization that can represent their case and so on. So can we have an economic an economics activity which lacks completely any social organization? I think it is not possible. One is that some people are engaged in doing something and that they are contributing to the development of the society. Now, this has to be projected, this has to be explained. Unless this is explained, nobody knows what they are doing. And the second is, they have to grow continuously in order to compete with the countries which have an edge or which are also trying to get the same market. So it has to be a continuous process of growth. That can happen when they are very mature, and secondly, when they work in a work environment and regulatory environment which has been created by the government. Finally, this technology adoption is a serious issue. I think some of the economists had addressed that issue. What was the Tinbergen? Tinbergen addressed that specifically. And his view was that as education and technology spreads broadly within the society, it does create environment of equity. So you do not have much wide difference between different groups of educated people, different groups of people having different levels of skill. And the technology that you employ for your production system also requires a skill. So there is a synergy between the technological development and education and demand for skilled labor force. But the gig economy creates a disjunction between the two. It creates a very highly gifted group of people who can contribute to the society, but the way they work is without a social organization. So we have to carefully look at the social connection of gig economy. I mean, the social connection of those who are in the gig sector and the broader society. And I would congratulate the BIISS for the interest they have taken in this new area. I would only suggest two things. One is, I do not know for sure how this can be incorporated in the foreign policies. Most probably, foreign policy is not a very fertile ground for incorporating the employment and education and technical skill development issues. Maybe they can interact with the Planning Commission and the Education Ministry and Ministry of Labor and Employment in order to integrate the concern that they have already recognized into those units of the government which are actually engaged in developing programs for these areas. That's one. And the second is, most of the data that we have been exposed to are kind of gig focused. X in this country, Y in that country, Z in another country, but all of that is related to this small domain. This ought to be related to the broader economic and social aspects which can be done by these ministries, and it can be meaningful if we can relate it to those larger picture. So I would suggest that they may also interact with the Bureau of Statistics in order to conduct some survey which would indicate how they can address the unemployment problem that we face, and what are the additional steps we would require in order to integrate it within the broader framework of employment that the government has an obligation of generating. So thank you again, and I do acknowledge the great contribution that the BISS has done to our understanding to our economy and to our social problem. I am grateful again to the audience for the attention they have given to me and the forgiveness for my ignorance. So thank you again. Joy Bangla, Joy Bangabandhu.
Thank you so much, Honorable advisor on economic affairs for the Prime Minister. He's always, full of ideas and perspectives. My mentor and friend, philosopher, and guide for many, many years. Thank you so much. I understand that I'm standing between lunch and this, few words. So I will have to be very precise, very concise, and very short. So, and I'm going to do that very much. The organizers have given me 5 minutes to sort of make some concluding statements. But after Dr. Moshiur Rahman, he does such an excellent job of summarizing all the discussions, all the ideas that have been raised, and he gives his own perspective as well. So I simply can't beat that. So thank you very much for taking care of a very serious responsibility today. I will just add a couple of thoughts within those 3 to 5 minutes that I have. And this has to do with the gig economy we talked about, and this whole idea of outsourcing, this whole idea that has come up from the integration of production across borders and the integration of work across borders. This is what we have come to know as the future of work. You don't have to be located physically in a place to work, but you can be working for a company from thousands of miles away. And that is what we mean by this outsourcing. Now, here is the point that needs to be made, given the current global developments, particularly evolution of certain geopolitical forces following the COVID crisis, and then the outbreak of the Russia-Ukraine war and the ramifications, economic ramifications, as well as the geopolitical ramifications. And that, I think, is a subject matter of the Bangladesh Institute of International and Strategic Studies. I'm sure they will be looking at it, and there will be a lot of research work. But here, there is a very visionary statement from father of the nation, Bangabandhu, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. What he said was very visionary. He said, friendship with all and malice to none. And that statement has now become terribly meaningful. There is for all the hyper-globalization that has taken place, within which this sort of production fragmentation and work fragmentation or work integration has occurred. The current trend, the current geopolitical trend that we now see gathering strong, that is being called fragmented globalization, deglobalization, fragmented globalization, and of course, a new geopolitical, polarized geopolitical order. In this particular context, ideas like friendship to all, malice to none become very relevant, because you need to, Bangladesh is a beneficiary of the global, globalization. We call it hyper-globalization for the period 1970 to 2015. That period has now slowed down. They're now calling it deglobalization or fragmented globalization. But that is where, diplomacy, friendship, negotiation with important trading partners become very relevant. And so Bangladesh, the benefits that Bangladesh has enjoyed in its export success, in its sending of huge number of migrant workers in other countries, that dividend has to be ensured in the future, and that requires very strong diplomatic initiatives which will keep Bangladesh in the good books of all important players in the world economy and in the world geopolitical order, whatever kind of geopolitical order emerges after the current state of affairs. So with these few words, I'd like to thank BIISS for inviting me to chair this very important session on a subject matter that I'm really very, only moderately informed or knowledgeable. So, but as an economist, I really enjoyed the linking of these, technological phenomenon and a labor market phenomenon. This is the gig economy is a combination of a technological phenomenon and a labor market phenomenon. And Bangladesh has a lot of potential. Bangladesh is a young country with young population. We are expecting demographic dividends to take us on to become a upper middle income country by 2031. And all the signs are that we are well placed. And thank you very much once again. And thanks for your understanding and patience before lunch. Thank you.
Thank you all for attending the seminar. May I kindly request all of you for joining us for lunch. The lunch is arranged at the lobby 1 and 2. Our BIS faculty will guide you to the designated lunch locations. Thank you.